She opened her front door and found a folded note shoved into the crack. No envelope, no name, just 6 words in jagged black ink. You were beautiful in your sleep. That's not the kind of thing you expect to read at 7:12 on a Monday morning while holding a travel mug and balancing a purse, a laptop, and leftover pasta. But there it was. Paper shaking between her fingers, breath caught in her chest like a hiccup that wouldn't come out. Rachel lived alone. She told herself maybe it was some prank, a stupid neighbor kid, or some edgy art project. But the handwriting looked frantic, like it was written in a rush or by someone whose hands didn't quite work right. The kind of writing that leaves little tears in the paper from pressing too hard. Her apartment door had no visible damage, no sign of forced entry. But that note? That didn't just get there on its own. She carried it with her, stuffed inside a folded napkin in her jacket pocket all day long. She didn't even look at it during work. Just knowing it was there felt like carrying a ticking noise no one else could hear. She sat through meetings, answered emails, talked to people, nodded when she was supposed to. But behind her smile, her thoughts spun like clothes in a dryer. When she got home that evening, she double-checked all the windows, all locked. The back door, locked. Her place wasn't big. Small kitchen, small living room, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. Cozy, nothing fancy. But suddenly, it felt too open, too reachable. She told a friend, Jenny, over the phone. Jenny laughed at first, then got quiet when Rachel didn't. Maybe someone's messing with you. You've had stalkers before, right? Not like this, Rachel said. Her voice dropped, almost embarrassed. It's the way it was written, like they were proud of it. That night, she left a lamp on in the hallway. Something she hadn't done in years, not since college. She used to think of herself as unshakable, one of those people who could sleep through anything. But now, every creak in the walls or tick of the pipes made her stomach flip. The next morning, there was no note. Nothing. She almost convinced herself it was a one-off, some freak accident, a dropped piece of trash from someone else's drama. She pushed through Wednesday, then Thursday. By Friday, she was sleeping again, sort of. Then came the second note. This time it wasn't on the door. It was inside her bathroom cabinet, folded neatly and placed between the Advil and the mouthwash. Same ink, same strange pressure. This one said, "You snore when you dream." That broke her. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood there looking at her own reflection in the mirror while holding the note like it might catch fire in her hands. Her face looked the same. Tired, yes. Pale, yes. But still her. Only not. Her reflection felt distant, like she was watching herself from outside her own body. Rachel didn't remember dreaming, didn't remember snoring. But that wasn't the point. She called the police. They sent over a younger guy, Officer Harmon. He looked like someone who just finished his training. Polite, kind, a little nervous maybe. He walked through her apartment, asked a few questions, took a photo of the note. Didn't touch much, said it was probably someone with a key. "I live alone," Rachel repeated. "No one else has a copy." "You ever lose one?" "Number never." He nodded, not really agreeing, just letting the words fall. He suggested she change the locks, offered to make a report, though it'd be marked low priority unless something else happened. "Nothing was taken, right? No damage?" "No." "Well, just keep us posted." That was it. Rachel changed her locks that night, got new keys made at a place that didn't even ask for ID. She installed one of those sliding metal bars on the inside of the front door. Every night, she checked every latch, every window, Her tiny apartment became a fortress. But even castles have cracks. A week passed, then two. She started to sleep again, still tense, still with her phone clutched in one hand and a flashlight on the nightstand. But sleep nonetheless. Then the third note came. Not paper this time. It was carved into the wood of her kitchen table, barely visible unless the light hit it just right. She saw it in the late afternoon, sun bleeding in through the slatted blinds. At first, she thought it was a scratch. Then she saw the shape of the letters. 3 words, barely etched, but unmistakable. Why lock the door? Her knees gave out. Rachel sat on the floor for nearly 30 minutes, back pressed against the cold fridge, eyes on the table like it might move. Her phone sat untouched on the counter. She didn't want to call Jenny, didn't want to call the police a dryer, hot and pointless and endless. Every few hours she'd touch her pocket, just to make sure the napkin hadn't somehow vanished. By the time 5 o'clock hit, her nerves were shredded. Her building was nothing special. A 4-story walk-up built sometime before people cared about insulation or decent locks. The hallway always smelled like microwave dinners and mildew. She paused at her door longer than usual that evening. The note was gone from the crack. Of course it was. She'd taken it. But still her eyes kept darting around like maybe another one would be there. Or worse, someone. She double-checked the locks behind her, then triple-checked. Rachel wasn't paranoid by nature. She wasn't the kind of person who jumped at shadows or clutched her keys between her fingers. But that night, she made sure every window was locked. She slid a chair under the doorknob. She even opened the closet in the hallway that always smelled like dust and floor polish, just to make sure no one had wormed their way in. At 1:07 a.m., she woke up without knowing why. No sound, no dream, just awake. Her bedroom was silent, except for the low hum of the fridge in the next room and the distant siren moaning from downtown. She lay still, heart picking up a rhythm it hadn't earned yet. She didn't hear anything, but she felt something. You know that feeling? When you're being watched. It's like your body figures it out before your brain does. A cold pinprick along the neck. The whisper of your skin saying, "Hey, something's not right." She stared at the ceiling, eyes wide open in the dark, too afraid to move. Then came the click. A soft one, like plastic against plastic, from the living room. Rachel's apartment was small. Kitchen, living area, bedroom, bathroom. No corners to hide in, no places for sounds to come from where they shouldn't. She told herself maybe it was the heat kicking on, or something falling off the counter. But she didn't hear a thud, just that one delicate click. She sat up, slow. Her phone said 1:09 a.m. She didn't want to go check, but not checking felt worse. So she slipped out of bed, feet landing silently on the hardwood floor, and crept to the door. It was cracked open an inch. She never left it open. She pushed it with one finger. The hallway was empty. The apartment was quiet. But something had changed. She just didn't know what. And then she saw it. The note. Another one. This time, folded in half and placed dead center on her coffee table. She hadn't left anything on that table. She knew that. She didn't even walk all the way to it. Just stood there, maybe 10 feet away, staring at it like it might twitch. Eventually, she forced herself forward. The floor creaked once under her heel. She unfolded the note. "Your window lock is broken." That's all it said. She ran. Didn't even think about it. Just grabbed her keys. No coat, no shoes. barely even remembered to yank the door open instead of fumbling at the deadbolt. She sprinted barefoot down 3 flights of stairs and out into the parking lot, where the cold concrete bit her feet and the streetlights made everything look fake and washed out. Her breath came out in clouds. She didn't stop until she was leaning against her car, clutching her phone with shaking hands. She called the police. To their credit, they showed up fast. 2 officers, a woman in her 30s and a guy who looked like he still got carded at gas stations. They checked the apartment, asked the right questions, took the notes, even inspected the window. "It's not broken," the female officer said after checking the latch. "Little loose, maybe. But it's locked." Rachel tried to explain how she never left her bedroom door open, how she was sure there hadn't been a note before, how the click hadn't sounded like anything normal. But saying it out loud made it all sound stupid. The officers were polite, even sympathetic. But when they left, they didn't leave anyone behind. No patrol cars stayed parked outside. Just a "call us if anything else happens." Nothing happened for a while. That was the worst part. No more notes, no clicks, no signs, just silence. Rachel started feeling like maybe it had been a prank. Maybe her ex, Zach, was pulling some twisted stunt. He always had this way of making everything feel a little unsafe, even when he was smiling. But when she texted to ask if he'd been near her place, he replied with a laughing emoji, and then nothing else. 3 days passed, and then the smell started. At first, she thought maybe something had spilled behind the fridge. It was faint, sour, like milk left out too long. But no matter how much she cleaned, it didn't go away. It moved. First the kitchen, then the hallway, then right outside her bedroom door. She called maintenance. The guy came with a flashlight and a clipboard and did what maintenance guys do. Shrugged, sniffed, checked under the sink, said he couldn't find anything. Said she might be smelling sewer gas from another unit or something from the vents. Said he'd check back later. That night, she dreamed she couldn't breathe. She woke up with her hand over her mouth, lying sideways on the bed, her face half buried in the pillow. Her phone buzzed beside her. 3 a.m. A message from an unknown number. No words. Just a photo. A photo of her, asleep in bed, taken from maybe 2 feet away. The pillow, the blanket, the pattern of the sheets, everything matched. Even her hair was spread across the pillow exactly how it was right now. She stared at it for so long, her phone screen dimmed. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just sat there, heart knocking so hard she could feel it in her throat. The picture didn't have any reflections in it. No shadows of a person holding a camera. No silhouette. Just her. Completely vulnerable. When she tried to call the number back, it was disconnected. She went to the police again. She showed them the photo. They asked the same questions. Did she give anyone access to her apartment? Was she sure her door was locked? Could she have left it open? Did she have any friends who thought this kind of thing was funny? She begged them to take it seriously, and they said they were. But their voices had that tired edge, like they'd already decided it was another nothing case. No fingerprints, no break-in, no way to trace the number. They offered to send someone by to check in on her the next few nights, but they never gave a specific time or date. Rachel didn't sleep the next night, or the one after that. She stopped going to work. She taped over every vent. She piled furniture in front of the bedroom window. She started carrying a knife in her hoodie pocket, even just to check the mail. And then came the worst thing. The note wasn't on the table this time. It was in her bed, under the pillow. She felt it the moment she laid down. a weird stiffness under the cushion, like a paperback book or a remote she forgot she had. She sat up, reached under, and pulled out the folded square of paper. She didn't want to open it. Her hands didn't even feel like hers anymore. Her arms were buzzing, like static had replaced the blood. She opened it anyway. "Stop locking the door, I'm tired of waiting." She didn't remember falling asleep. But when she woke up the next morning, the knife was gone from her hoodie. She told the cops someone was living in her walls. They laughed, said she was probably just hearing things. 2 weeks later, she stopped answering her phone. It started with a scraping sound, soft, like nails brushing against drywall. At first, Jess thought it was the wind messing with the siding again. The old duplex on Pine Street always made weird noises when it rained. And that night, the sky had cracked open with thunder so loud it rattled the windows. She was in the kitchen, barefoot on cold linoleum, eating dry cereal from the box, scrolling through job listings on her phone. The glow of the screen painted her face in pale blue light, and she barely noticed the faint drag scratch from the living room wall behind her. It happened again the next night. Same sound, same wall, only this time it didn't stop. Jess was 26, newly single, and broke as hell. The breakup with Nate had been like getting slammed by a slow-moving car, sudden and drawn out all at once. One moment they were arguing about something stupid. The next, she was packing her things and dragging 3 overstuffed trash bags down the steps of their shared apartment, like a scene out of some off-brand indie drama. The place on Pine was all she could afford on short notice. A duplex, technically, but the other half was empty. The landlord, a man named Gary, who always sounded like he was trying not to burp mid-sentence, told her the other tenant left in a hurry. She didn't ask why. She just wanted the key, the space, and to be alone. But now the walls were making sounds they shouldn't be making. On the third night, Jess pressed her ear against the living room wall. Nothing. She stood there for a full minute, breath held, heart knocking quietly in her chest like it knew something she didn't. Still nothing. She exhaled and turned to walk away. That's when she heard it. A whisper, muffled, right behind the drywall. She spun around so fast her phone slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor. She stood there, frozen, eyes fixed on the spot. The wall didn't move. The sound didn't come again. By the time she went to bed, her pulse was still fluttering like a trapped moth. The next morning, Jess posted in a local Facebook group. Anyone ever hear voices in their walls? Not like, "I need help," ghosts. Just muffled whispering, asking for a friend, LOL. She got the usual mix of emojis, yikes comments, and a couple of people telling her to sage the place or call a priest. But one comment stuck out. "You live in the Pine Street duplex? Move, now." No profile picture. No further comment. When she clicked the account, it was already deleted. That was the first time she called the police. "I think someone might be inside the walls of my house," she said, cheeks flushing red even as she said it. The silence on the other end stretched long enough for her to almost hang up out of embarrassment. Finally, the dispatcher said, "Ma'am, do you see anyone? Is there any sign of forced entry?" "No, but I heard..." She stopped herself. "I heard something. We can send someone to check it out, but if there's no visible threat, there's not much we can do." Jess nodded, even though no one could see her. "Yeah, okay." A cruiser showed up an hour later. 2 officers knocked, poked around, and left. No signs of break-in. Nothing suspicious. They were polite enough, but the way they glanced at each other made her stomach sink. That night, she slept with the hallway light on. It didn't help. Around 2 a.m., a soft knock echoed through the wall behind her bed. 3 gentle taps, then silence. She sat up slowly, chest tight, mouth dry. Her room felt colder than it should have. She waited. Nothing else happened. Still, she didn't sleep. The next morning, Jess dragged a chair to the living room wall and climbed up to the ceiling vent. She unscrewed the cover with a butter knife and shone her phone's flashlight inside. Just dust and dark. Then faintly, something moved. Not a rat, not a breeze. Something shifting. She dropped the phone. It clunked against the vent cover and tumbled to the floor. Her hands were trembling as she stepped down, heart pounding like a drum line. She called the landlord. Gary groaned when he answered, and she could hear "The Price is Right" blaring in the background. "There's something in the walls," she said. "You got raccoons or squirrels or some crap. Old houses, you know." "Number this is different. I think someone might be in there." Gary made a sound halfway between a laugh and a cough. "Yeah, right. Like some squatters living in your drywall." She didn't laugh. "I'm serious. I need someone to check it." He promised to send a guy, but no one ever came. That weekend, Jess drove to her sister's place across town and begged to stay the night. Her sister didn't ask questions, just set up the couch and handed her a blanket. Jess didn't sleep much, but at least the house was quiet. When she came back Sunday evening, the front door was unlocked. She stood there for a moment, key still in her hand, dread crawling up her spine. She was sure, absolutely sure, she'd locked it when she left. Inside, everything looked normal. No broken windows, no overturned furniture. But her toothbrush was missing, and the fridge was open. She stood in the kitchen, hand on the fridge door, watching a slow drip of water fall from the freezer like a leaky wound. The cereal box was gone too. Jess backed out of the house, locked the door, and sat in her car for an hour, just breathing. That night, she didn't sleep in the house. She sat awake in her car outside, lights off, doors locked, phone in her lap. Every now and then she thought she saw a flicker in the window. A shadow, maybe. Maybe not. At 3:41 a.m., she saw the curtain move. Not from wind. It was too heavy for that. It moved like someone had parted it slightly, and then let go. She called the cops again. This time she didn't mince words. "Someone was in my house." They came quicker. 2 cars, flashlights, a K9 unit. They went room to room. Found nothing. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. Nothing. Except the officer, a tall guy with a shaved head and permanent scowl, held something up in a clear evidence bag, a crumpled note. Folded, greasy, written in red ink. It said, "You shouldn't have left." Jess felt the blood drain from her face. The note wasn't hers. She hadn't seen it before. They took it, logged it, and left. Again. "No signs of entry," the other officer repeated, like it was supposed to make her feel better. "Could be a prank. Maybe an ex messing with you?" She wanted to believe that. She really did. But Nate had moved to another state. He didn't even know where she lived now. She hadn't told anyone except her sister and her boss at the cafe. She didn't go inside. Just drove back to her sister's place and spent the night staring at the ceiling, heart jackhammering with every creak. The next morning, she went back. And the smell hit her before she even opened the door. A sharp, sour rot, like spoiled meat and mildew and something worse. She gagged, pulling her hoodie sleeve over her nose. Inside, the smell was thicker, heavier, like it clung to her lungs. She searched every room. Nothing. No trash left out. No food. No leaks. But in the hallway closet, tucked behind a stack of blankets she never used, she found it. A small pile of balled-up tissues. Empty food wrappers, a dirty sock, and a bottle of her shampoo, half used. Jess stumbled backward, hand over her mouth. Someone had been living in her house. Not breaking in, living, sleeping, hiding. She slammed the closet shut and ran outside, dialing the police with shaking fingers. Her breath fogged in the cold morning air, even though it was spring. They came again, took photos, took the trash, asked questions she didn't know how to answer. Did you leave the door unlocked? No. Do you have a spare key somewhere? No. Anyone else have access? No. Same result. No fingerprints. No signs of entry. Jess asked if they could stay, post someone at the door. She begged. They said no. That night, Jess didn't go back. She couldn't. She booked a cheap motel room near the highway, one of those places where the sheets feel like paper and the walls are too thin for secrets. But at least she could lock the door. At least she could see under the bed. She barely slept. Every sound, an AC unit kicking on, footsteps in the hall, a truck passing outside, felt like it could be someone breathing just out of sight. In the morning, she called a locksmith. Told them she wanted every lock changed, every window checked, every crawl space sealed. She spent almost all of her savings, but she didn't care. She just needed to feel safe. For a little while, it worked. The new locks clicked shut with solid confidence. She installed cameras, 2 outside, 1 inside facing the living room. Her sister helped set them up. They joked nervously while drilling things into the walls, pretending none of this was as serious as it felt. "I bet you just had a raccoon squatter with a taste for hair care," her sister said, nudging her with an elbow. Jess forced a laugh. The house was quiet for a week. No noises, no notes, no missing toothbrushes. Jess started to believe maybe it was a one-time thing. Maybe someone had slipped in during that first week and left when the police showed up. Then, on the 8th night, the camera in the living room pinged a motion alert. 2:03 a.m. She sat up in bed, heart thumping, the glow from her phone painting her sheets in cold light. The thumbnail preview was just shadows. She tapped the screen. The footage loaded. For 6 seconds, nothing moved. Just the couch, the dim outline of her bookshelf, the hallway. Then, slowly, from behind the couch, a shape rose. A person, not fast, not clumsy, smooth, intentional. He stood there for a moment, head tilted like he was listening, then turned and looked directly into the camera. Jess's breath caught in her throat. Her limbs turned to concrete. The man's face was blurry, half in shadow, but it was what she could see that broke her. The expression, blank. Not rage, not fear, just emptiness. Like he'd done this before. The video ended with him walking calmly back behind the couch. Like that's where he lived. Jess called the cops again. This time, she didn't wait outside. She drove straight to the station and demanded someone take her seriously. She showed them the footage. One of the officers watched it twice, then rubbed his eyes like he was too tired to process it. They promised to sweep the house again. But again, nothing. No sign of forced entry, no fingerprints, no trace of him. They asked her if she was sure it wasn't an old video, a prank, maybe something staged. She nearly screamed. That night, she stayed at her sister's again. The next morning, the footage was gone. Deleted, not corrupted, erased. All 3 videos, outside and inside, gone from her cloud account. She sat in her sister's kitchen, trembling, phone on the table like it might explode. "What if he's not breaking in?" she said. Her sister paused, coffee halfway to her mouth. "What do you mean? What if he's been inside the whole time? What if he never left?" It sounded insane, but not more insane than what she'd lived through. That night, Jess went back, not to sleep, to search. She checked every inch of the place, moved furniture, pulled up the bath panel, took the vent covers off again. Nothing. But when she tapped along the back wall of the hallway closet, something sounded off. A hollow thump. She pressed her ear against it. Nothing. She hesitated, then drove to Home Depot, bought a cheap crowbar, and came back. Her hands shook as she wedged it between the wall panels and pulled. The drywall cracked with a dry groan, then split open, revealing a narrow crawl space. Inside, blankets, food wrappers, a flashlight, empty bottles, and a small, spiral-bound notebook. She pulled it out with gloved hands and flipped it open. Every page was filled with her name. Jess, 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 Jess. Written over and over. Some pages had dates, others had what looked like diary entries. She didn't see me today. She almost heard me when I sneezed. She looked sad. I like when she's sad. She dropped the notebook and stumbled backward, bile rising in her throat. She ran outside and called the police. They came, again. Tape, photos, radio chatter. This time, they didn't tell her she was imagining things. But they also didn't find him. The crawl space was empty. No fingerprints, no leads. They said he might have been a squatter, might have slipped in through an old basement access or roof vent and lived there, watching her, for weeks. But they couldn't find how he got in, or how he got out. And they couldn't do anything else. No crime scene, no suspect. Just fear. Jess moved out the next day, left half her stuff behind. She didn't care. She stayed with her sister for a while, then relocated entirely. New city, new job, new locks. She still checks her vents every night, still sleeps with the light on. And sometimes, just sometimes, she swears she hears whispering again. Software muffled, like someone behind the wall, breathing her name. You ever notice how quiet your phone gets when you're really in trouble? Not like you dropped it in a lake or something. I mean, real trouble, where you need someone to answer. But nobody does. That's the kind of quiet that makes you hear your own breath like a threat. I wasn't planning to stay late at the office. I don't even like being there after dark. It's one of those open-plan co-working spaces. Exposed brick walls, Edison bulbs, air that always smells like burnt coffee, and too much ambition. But I had invoices to catch up on and a client presentation the next morning. So I stayed. Everyone else trickled out by 7. By 8, the cleaning guy had finished, nodded at me with that tired kind of smile, and left. I was alone, and I was fine with that. I liked quiet. Usually. It was around 9:40 p.m. when I first noticed something strange. I was in one of the smaller meeting rooms near the back corner of the building, scrolling through some Excel nightmare on my laptop. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement by the glass wall, just a flicker, like someone passed by. But the outer lights were motion sensitive, and they didn't turn on. I figured maybe the sensors were acting up, or I was just tired, whatever. I got back to work. 10 minutes later, there was a faint knock on the glass. Not the main door, not the entrance. On the actual glass wall of the meeting room. It was so soft I thought maybe I imagined it. But then it happened again. 3 knocks. Sharp. Even. Like someone using their knuckles with a weird sort of patience. I looked up. No one. I froze for a second, my heart giving that awkward thump like it wasn't sure if it should panic yet. The room had those cheap blinds pulled halfway down, so I stood up, walked over, and raised them slowly. Still nothing. I even opened the door to the hallway, just long rows of desks lit by the dull emergency lights. Silent. Empty. Back in the meeting room, I checked the cameras on my phone. Our co-working app gave us access to the security feed, but it's not exactly high def. I skimmed through the hallway cams. No one had come in or out since the cleaner. So I went back to work, headphones on this time, half trying to drown out my own nerves. I was being paranoid. Just some echo or creak from the building settling. I told myself that at least 5 times. And then I heard my name. I yanked the headphones off so fast they slapped against the desk. The voice had come from the hallway. A woman's voice, soft, but weirdly close, like she was standing just outside the room. She said it again. Jess. Except it wasn't anyone I knew. The voice had this odd cadence. No urgency, no anger, just flat, like someone trying the name out for size. I stood perfectly still, one hand hovering over my laptop, the other on the edge of the desk. Every hair on my body was standing up. I didn't say anything. I didn't move. I just listened. Nothing. I walked out into the hallway again. My legs felt numb from sitting too long, or maybe from adrenaline. I couldn't tell. The hallway stretched out into silence. Empty chairs, desks, that weird little snack corner with stale granola bars and instant coffee. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. That's when I noticed something off. The emergency lights were flickering, just faintly, in a way they never had before. Like the power was unstable. But my laptop still had full Wi-Fi, and the central lights were on in the other rooms. I called the front desk. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. So I did what anyone would do. I called the building's security number listed in our entry app. It rang once, and then just clicked. No one spoke, no hold music, nothing. Just this dead silence, like the line had connected, but no one was there. I listened for over a minute. Then it disconnected on its own. I packed up fast, laptop, charger, keys. I didn't even shut down the Excel file. I just slammed the lid shut and headed to the exit. That's when I saw her. She was standing in the far end of the hallway, where the elevators are. She wasn't moving, just standing there. Her head tilted slightly like she was trying to make out who I was. She wore a gray hoodie pulled up, but I could see her chin. Her jaw was moving slightly, like she was mumbling something I couldn't hear. I stepped back into the room without thinking, slammed the door, and locked it. I don't know why that was my instinct. It's not like a glass wall and thin door could stop anyone. But in that moment, it felt safer. I tried calling 911. No signal. I'm not kidding. No bars, no Wi-Fi. The same phone that just minutes ago streamed security footage now showed nothing. Just a spinning wheel and searching. I backed away from the door, sat on the floor behind the desk and waited. Maybe she was just someone who got locked in. Maybe she needed help. Maybe this was all some bizarre misunderstanding, and I was the one making it weird. But then came the whispering, not from the hallway, from inside the room, behind me. I turned so fast I nearly fell. No one was there. Then I saw it, written on the whiteboard wall behind the desk, in red marker, "You see me now." I hadn't written that. No one had. I had been the only one in that room for the past 2 hours. I stared at it, trying to breathe normally. my heart doing these weird little flutters in my chest like it was trying to restart every few seconds. I erased the writing. It came off easily. Normal marker. Nothing weird. Then the knocks came again. 3. Even. Deliberate. But this time, from inside the room. I turned around so fast, I knocked my chair over. It clattered to the floor behind me, loud enough to make my ears ring. I scanned the room again, every corner, every inch. Still no one. I was alone. And yet, the knock had come from inside. I stared at the far wall, heart hammering in my chest like it was trying to break out. There was no one. Just the coat rack, a half-used flip chart, and a power strip blinking its tiny green light under the table. But something had changed. The air. It had weight now, like the room was holding its breath. I didn't know what to do, so I ran. Out of the room, past the snack bar, straight for the stairs. I didn't trust the elevator with that woman, whatever she was. Still somewhere in the building. I took the steps 2 at a time, heart slamming against my ribs. 4 flights down to the lobby. By the time I got to the last landing, my legs were jelly. I reached for the handle to the main glass doors. Locked. That made no sense. They're never locked from the inside. It's a shared space. Open 24/7. We have key cards for entry, not exit. I pulled harder. Nothing. Just my reflection in the glass, wide-eyed and shaking. I tried my key card. No response. No beep. No red light. It just didn't work. I turned around, panting, dizzy. That's when I saw my phone screen light up in my pocket. Signal. 1 bar, then 2. I called the police immediately, walking in circles, my voice cracking from the panic. I told them everything. Where I was, that I thought someone was in the building, that I couldn't get out. They asked if I was in immediate danger. I hesitated. That was the wrong answer. They told me to wait inside, lock a door, and they'd send a unit. But it might be a while. A non-emergency unit. Then they hung up, just like that. I stared at the phone in disbelief, like maybe it would ring again and they'd say, "Just kidding, we're on our way." But nothing, just silence. I went back upstairs. What else could I do? The stairwell lights flickered like something out of a bad dream. When I reached my floor again, everything looked different. All the hallway lights were off now. Just that awful red glow from the exit signs and the low hum of electronics. My office door was wide open. I was certain I had shut it. I stepped inside slowly. Every muscle in my body screamed for me to turn around. But something made me go in. The whiteboard was clean again, wiped, spotless. But my laptop was open, and something was playing. It was a video. Footage from the security camera, the one facing the hallway outside the meeting room. The time stamp showed just 10 minutes earlier. And there I was, on the screen, sitting at the desk. Behind me, the door opened. But I hadn't heard it open. I watched myself sit there, completely unaware as something stepped halfway into the room and stood behind me. I leaned forward and paused the video. The figure wasn't clear, blurry, almost distorted. But it was the same shape, same size as the woman I'd seen by the elevator. Except now I could see something else. Her arms weren't at her sides. They were lifted, wrong. Bent at the elbows, but too far back, like her joints didn't work the way they should. And her fingers? They hung in the air like broken marionette strings. I shut the laptop so hard it echoed. I was shaking uncontrollably, mouth dry, knees locked. I ran to the corner of the office, turned the couch upright, and barricaded the door. Then I just sat there, waiting, listening. Somewhere in the hallway, footsteps, slow, barefoot, almost wet sounding. They stopped right outside the door. I didn't breathe. Not even a little. A minute passed. Then another. Then I heard her voice. Jess, you left the door open. Software right on the other side. She was right. I had. She whispered again. Let me show you what you missed. And then came the sound that haunts me even now. Not screaming, not banging, laughter. But it wasn't hers. It was mine. Played back through the intercom system. Somehow, she had recorded me laughing earlier that night. Before the knocking, before any of it. And now she was playing it back like a joke I hadn't realized I was part of. Eventually, the sound faded. She was gone. Or maybe just quieter. 30 minutes later, the police arrived. They buzzed the door. I ran to let them in, crying, shaking, hysterical. But when they searched the building, there was no one. The cameras, wiped clean. My laptop, still open, but the file was gone. Not deleted, just gone like it had never been there. They told me no crime had been committed, no sign of forced entry, no damage, no proof. They gave me a card for a trauma counselor. Said I probably just got spooked being alone too long. That's the thing, though. They can't help you if nothing technically happened. If there's no report to file, no name to take, no fingerprints, no face, just your word, your fear, your memory of someone who shouldn't be real, but was, and who knew your name before you ever said it out loud.